Member Joe Goodhue.
I move that the question be now put.
No, I'm going to call the Honourable Pete Hodson.
Mr Chairman, that was an outrageous contribution. Mr Chairman, I think it's time for the House to become more aware of the import of this legislation and of the issue of counterfeiting as it affects New Zealand. How does it relate to the bill? The whole idea of copyright and trademarks is to deter counterfeiting and to enable people to enforce action against those who would counterfeit. How many infringing items were detained by customs in 2004-05? I asked the member opposite. Answer: 185,000. 185,000. How many a day is that? 500 in any one day. Counterfeit items seized at the border by our enforcement agencies. And the member thinks that this legislation should be passed through without due comment for their efforts to sustain the truth and honesty of our merchandising system by ensuring that we have good enforcement of copyright and trademark laws. However, problem's not getting any easier.
No.
By the following year, 2005-06, that figure of 185,000 had risen to 260,000. You get the idea, Mr Chairman, that this is a serious issue. What did the Retailers Federation have to say? These are the people who hock off this stuff. You know, they don't make it. They are at the other end of it. They are the people hocking it off, and they only want, so that they can lie straight in bed at night, want only to hock off the real McCoy. No counterfeits for them. They want a tough approach to counterfeiting, do the retailers. A little surprising. I would have thought the manufacturers and owners and so on would have been the people who wanted really tough. I would have thought the retailers really couldn't care whether it was, so long as you get cash for goods, if you see what I mean, Mr Chairman. But no, they care all right. They said to the Select Committee that they have increasing, this is a quote, they have increasing concerns about the growth in counterfeit merchandise, and go on to say, a little surprisingly, I thought, we are continually concerned at the personal health and safety risks that New Zealanders are subjected to by a vast range of poor quality counterfeit goods. So this is exploding pyjamas, stuff like that, Mr Chairman. In fact, they go on to say, these can range from car parts to pharmaceuticals and perfume. So they didn't mention exploding pyjamas, but they might have. And they did say that they thought that the National Enforcement Unit, these are the people who are our counterfeit cops and our trademark cops, that they should be given greater role, and indeed this legislation does that, a greater role to enable the enforcement of criminal offences, and on it goes. Now, interestingly, a press statement of 2009 that was mentioned by my colleague Claire Curran has got an interesting alternative point of view. Let me tell you what patent attorney Elspeth Buchanan has to say about these matters. Patent attorney Elspeth Buchanan, the newspaper tells us breathlessly, knows how hard it is to tell knockoffs from the real thing, and then quotes her as saying this: "I've been judging trademark infringements for 40 years professionally." So she's in her later years as Elspeth Buchanan, and I often can't tell between the genuine and the fake, she said, which is a pity, because that's what she's paid for.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a shame. But anyway, there we are. She said that she's devoted her entire life to telling one from the other, and she can't. So, well, I just wish her a really happy retirement, I do. I mean, it's just a shame that she spent her life not being able to do what she's been paid to do. She said, however, that sometimes the rights holders can't achieve that either, like the people who own the stuff, who made the Rolex. They couldn't tell the real Rolex from the other Rolex, and just drop it on the concrete, said Stevie Chadwick, who obviously knows a thing or two about this. So she said her point of view is the opposite to the retailers, even though she's involved in enforcement as well. She said she's worried that the proposed new enforcers, this is the National what is it called, enforcement unit, I think, of trademark and copyright laws, custom officers and MED officials won't be able to judge the real from the rip-off. After all, she can't after 40 years of trying. So probably Mr. Chairman.
I call the honourable member.
So probably officials won't be able to either, they being mere officials, but she said they will be thwarting legitimate business while they try. In other words, the retailers can't get on with hocking off the counterfeiters because they've been seized. They'll be one of those 260,000 items that get seized every year. At least that's the 2005 and 6 figure. So she says that these government agencies under the new legislation will be able to search for, seize and investigate suspected trademark offences. Buchanan, this is patent attorney Elspeth Buchanan, who's been doing this for 40 years, says that the proposed changes are spectacular. But I don't know whether she meant spectacularly good or spectacularly bad. I think she means spectacularly bad because she goes on to say, and I quote, "The hit squad," said Elspeth Buchanan, patent attorney, "the hit squad from the Ministry of Economic Development will be raiding warehouses for hot copyright infringers, leading to criminal prosecution for infringing T-shirts." Ooh. So she's clearly pretty unhappy. She said she had a client importing exercise gear miss last year's Christmas market because a customs officer was unable to make a formal determination on whether the products were counterfeit or not. Turns out they weren't, she said, though she did say earlier that she's not been able to tell one from the other, but that the customs officer was unable to make a formal determination because of staffing issues. So the point is that this person, this patent attorney, Elspeth Buchanan, is of the view that we might be making too much of a meal about this copyright and trademark stuff, that maybe it's better to let it go through. After all, she says, you can't tell one from the other, so who gives a damn? And she's been trying for 40 years and she still can't, so good on her for her frankness. She holds the view that this is going to sort of hold up business, and there's going to be too much of an impost on the honest trader who wants to flog off a bit of counterfeit goods because no one can tell one from the other. Well, not on this side of the house. We don't agree with that. We think Elspeth Buchanan is wrong, with a capital R. We think that Elspeth Buchanan should stand in favour of action against counterfeiters and people who cheats and lies and stuff like that. She's a lawyer. She went to a law school and she's letting these cheats and lies off. It's a disgrace. So, Mr. Chairman, we stand with the government on this. We think this is an excellent piece of legislation because we introduced it, which leads me to make another point. I said that I was unsure whether I had introduced it or whether Leanne Dalziel had. Well, guess what? Silly old me. Neither of us did. Tohanari said nobody cares. I care. I care. Tohanari said that I'm nobody. I've been called nobody by Tohanari. It's wonderful.
Judith Tizard.
The legislation was introduced by the Honourable Judith Tizard. And, my colleague wasn't going to correct me. He should have. And that's why I was unsure whether it was me or Leanne, because it was neither of us. So my honourable colleague Judith Tizard, who I believe is within the precincts of the building tonight. I'm not sure. I think she might be. I can't hear what Rodney Hyde says, but it doesn't matter because he's not here much longer. I think Judith Tizard is in the precincts of the building. In any case, she introduced this legislation. It's now, I think, in the name of the Honourable Simon Power, who's going the same way as me, and not before too long. And I'm now, I think I'm going to, in a very short order, I'm going to resume my seat, Mr. Chairman.
I call the Honourable Member Dr. Paul Hutchison.